So, good morning everybody and welcome to this slightly unusual edition of Creative Mornings Derby. So, I'm sitting in Future Proof Films, you can probably see it, and we've got a skeleton crew of Rob, the attractive future proofer, and our speaker Matt Davies.
Less attractive.
And less attractive, yeah. And it's a bit of an odd time. So we're in week 1 of the coronavirus pandemic. So we're on a bit of a lockdown. This is the kind of last in-person, although it's not in-person, event that we'll be doing for a foreseeable future. So it's a bit tricky, but we've come together to film it, to make sure you still get to be part of this community, because community is super important at this time, because we're no longer individual little businesses and freelancers, right? We're all in this together, no matter what kind of gender or creed or race or country we're from. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's from our community, our people in Jakarta. Best wishes, Jakarta. Hope you're doing all right. And they created this wonderful illustration, as they do every month. So for those people who've not come across Creative Mornings, we're seeing this on Facebook for the first time. Every month, Creative Mornings has a global theme that's picked by one of our chapters. And it's Jakarta's time. And it's under identity. And Matt is going to speak to us about identity, or his take on identity in the current times. But first of all, we've got to thank a few of our global partners, because without our global partners, Creative Mornings across the globe wouldn't exist. And the first one is MailChimp. And if you didn't know, and if you're sitting at home on your sofa currently looking for something to do, MailChimp have a podcast. So get on to your favourite podcast app or download one from your store of choice. And give it a listen, because there's some really creative episodes, really good stories to get into on the MailChimp podcast. Next up is WordPress.com. Hands up if you've got a WordPress website. Like everybody, I can imagine hundreds and thousands of you have put your hands up. It'll be amazing, because everybody, like 1 in 3 people have a WordPress website or something ridiculous. But they're really, really good platform, and they power everything we do. They've also brought out a content series. I'm just reading off here of what you might say on stage. We won't be on stage for a little bit, but the content series is really good, because that's their bread and butter, right? WordPress is built on making it easy to produce great content and share it with your community. And not only is this March edition of Creative Mornings special because of the global situation we're in, we do have a brand new global partner, and that is Basecamp, right? And Basecamp is not only sponsoring this month's topic of identity, but our new global sponsor replacing Adobe. And Basecamp, if you haven't been on it, is a project management tool ideal for remote working. Ideal for remote working. There's personal versions, free versions, and good team versions. But it's one of those tools, one of those really useful tools that bring everything together when we're so disparate in our workforce. It will be really good. So if you follow us on social media, there'll be some links to check out Basecamp a bit later. So, Creative Mornings, right? Creative Mornings is in 215 cities across the globe. And I just want to use this time to give our chapters in other countries a bit of a shout out. So there's loads of cities in Italy currently on lockdown that I'd like to say hi to. So hi and best wishes from Derby to you guys in Italy. All our friends in Asia and China and across the globe who are facing challenging times building and keeping this community going. You're doing good work. Keep it going, because people need a sense of community. They need to belong at this time. So we're on to the main event. We're on to a friend of mine and an international speaker. He's one of the few people who I learn stuff from every time he opens his mouth. And he's got an awesome beard. Please welcome Mr. Matt Davies to the camera.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everybody. As Tim says, I'm Matt Davies. I'm a brand and culture consultant, and what an interesting time it is to be asked to speak about identity, right? So when Tim asked me to speak about this, it was about 6 months ago, and I thought, this is going to be like a dead easy, very simple, kind of straightforward talk. I was going to talk to you about things like, really nice fluffy things, like how that consumers have less time, but they have more choice, and so that the point of brand identity, which is the space I play in, is to help people make an informed decision, to help them understand, why they should choose you over somebody else. That's what we were going to talk about, really, this idea of helping people make a decision, and that your identity really needs to be taken seriously in order to do that. And I was going to talk you through, as you can imagine, some of the standard sort of brand and creative and design things that you might want to look at in order to do that. But the truth is, I was struggling with this, being honest, because I thought, if I can't go and talk about all that fluffy stuff in the face of what we as creatives and as businesses are facing today. So we are facing this global lockdown, this pandemic. It is serious, and so it has taken on a more serious tone. And I know as businesses, particularly small creative businesses, we are facing some of the most toughest decisions that perhaps we will ever face, and both professionally, with our people, with our staff, but also as individuals. And I'm acutely aware of the fact that behind all of the creatives listening to this, there's families, there's friends, there's older family members, and our hearts go out to you all. We pray that you're safe. So I thought, I can't come on and talk about how to change your logo color or something silly like that. This is not the time for that. We've got to ask ourselves the question when it comes to identity, and particularly in times like this, who actually are we? I think is the question. That's what we're actually all being asked to do on a daily basis in our personal lives and our business lives. Who are we? And times like this, it really actually it's kind of the times when we find out actually who we really are. Are we going to put people over profit? Are we actually going to serve our customers so that they're safe? Are we going to really take the tough choices that might affect us personally in order to live into the brand identities that we have claimed? Or is all this brand stuff, has it always been just a lick of paint? Has it always just been a nod to brand values? Has it always been a nod to defining a purpose? These are the times when we get the opportunity to live into those values that we may have set. And if we haven't yet, I'll talk about those in a minute. So this is kind of really what we were going to look at. I was going to talk about brand identity. I've called this thing the brand berg, right? So, above the water, we've got all the things that people can see. And the space I actually play in really most of the time is below the water, is in the strategy area, working with leadership teams to kind of, have those North Stars to guide them through. And as I was thinking about this problem that we're all facing, I was thinking about the fact that actually the principles of brand thinking, there has never really been a time when perhaps they're most important. Tim talked in the warm-up about the idea of community. And I guess it is about us all getting back to basics. Like, who are we? Why do we exist? What type of people are we? And what do we value? Your brand is not your logo is one of the messages you'll hear me sort of chunt out quite a bit. That's the end bit, that's the veneer, that's the lick of paint. At the heart of everything, though, that is really what your brand is. Your brand, as I define it, is the meaning people attach to you and your offering. And in these changing times, you need to take that really, really seriously as a small business and even as an individual, because we will get through this and we will come through the other side. I'm very confident about that. But when we do, it's the things that we do now that is going to determine the longer term success of ourselves and our businesses. What meaning are people going to attach to us, in the future? We need to bear that in mind today. That definition of brand being the meaning people attach to you, it's kind of comes from I think really when I talk to most people about brand, they think it is the logo and some fonts and some colors. But the reason for that is because I think where branding actually came from historically, it was in branding animals, right? So you'd get your hot iron and you'd brand your animal, and that was your animal. And everybody knew that was your animal. They couldn't touch it then, it was yours. And so we associate branding with that mark, with the end mark. But the truth is it's not that. The truth is that it was a signpost to something. It was the signpost to meaning. And that's all that is. Branding has never really changed down through time. Really what branding is the attempt to manage the meaning. So, and as time has gone on and we've got more sophisticated and technology has gone on, we've got better at that. But the core, the essence of why we're doing what we're doing and some of the basic things has never changed. We've got more sophisticated about how we present ourselves, how brands speak, how they dress, how they behave, how they articulate their beliefs, how they unite people. We've got really clever about that. In these times, I don't want to see that lost. I want to see us get even more focused around some of the important things in life, because all of those things come together and create meaning in our audience's minds. We know this. So brand is at the core, brand is at the heart of your identity. You can't just think of it as a font. It's more than that. And that's why this talk in these times, I'm hoping will add some value. And I'm hoping it won't. When I mention a couple of these things, I say, I've no idea. I've never done this before. I've never done a talk like this before. I've felt the pressure of it, to be honest. And I hope it doesn't come across as preachy or anything. This is just my take on it. And I hope you find some of the things that I'm now going to talk about helpful to you wherever you might be in the world. So there we go. So the big brand questions. And as I say, these are not new. These have been there. These are always strategic things that we would look at. But we might have to review them, basically, in these current times. Number one, why do we exist? Why do we exist as a business, if your business is hopefully still open and ticking along? Why is that there? And who do you exist to serve? These are two crucial questions because for sort of branding to be able to perform well. You need to know this. Now, I was talking to Tim just before we came on air that, although we might not we might live in a world that's completely different to where it was a couple of weeks ago. Therefore, the answers to these questions now might be different. Why do you exist? You might now exist to survive. That might literally be, your reason for being at this moment in time. And that's okay. The thing is to be aware of that purpose, be able to articulate it. And who you exist to serve. It might have used to be, millions of people across the world. Now that might have shrunk to just your family, to just your wife, to just your husband, to your partner. These are the questions. But I think, thinking about it, they're very, very relevant. Who actually are you in these times? These are the questions. What is your true identity? So here's a couple of things that I think that come to mind. As I say, this is not really, I literally pulled this together this morning because things are changing so much and it's been a bit crazy. The core of a lot of brand strategy is always purpose, okay? And as we say, your purpose might have changed now. Why do you exist? And if you think about it from a business perspective, that can still become quite interesting because you might have a purpose to help others, to serve others, to add value somewhere. Find out what that is. My suggestion is if you're still running your business, if you're in a leadership team, get your team together on a Zoom call or a Skype call or something, and if you haven't already, define your purpose or revisit the purpose you may have set out when you started your business or when you've done any brand activity before. Clarify that. That is going to be like your North Star as you get through these times. It will help you filter decision making and it will help you feel anchored somewhere. And if we need anchoring, now is definitely the time to anchor ourselves. And once we understand our purpose, you need to then think about who you're serving. So when you think about why you exist and who you exist to serve, you start to think about, well, how do I expect, you almost kind of have an out-of-body experience. You're kind of like, right, okay, so this, detach yourself from the emotions of the situation and think to yourself, like, how would I expect this brand to perform? And think about who you're there to serve. So how are you going to serve your people, your customers, your partners? How are you going to serve your peers? We talk about competition a lot. Maybe now is the time to scrap that idea and to think about how we're all going to join forces together. your biggest rival in business, reach out to them on LinkedIn. Try and serve them. Your people, are you going to put them first? Their safety, their health. Are you going to have to be much more flexible than ever? Are you going to have to be kinder than ever, more understanding? These are the things. Same with your partners. If you can survive without charging through the roof, let's have those conversations. And obviously your customers, they've got to be crucial. You're here usually as a brand, as a business, to serve customers. So my suggestion is to use brand principles to guide your business decisions through this crisis. Set those things up. Who do we exist to serve, and why do we exist? And go through these. Now, as I say, I pulled this together this morning, so I think this is running backwards, so bear with me. I was going to say to all those business leaders out there, just remember, you're not alone, for sure. Like, there will be other people facing exactly what you're facing right now. Now is the time. We're just still at the early doors of this problem, at least when we're sitting here. Now's the time to reach out. Get yourself a little network of other people you know who are in a similar situation. Seek support from your staff. You don't have to tackle this alone. If you're struggling to pay them, tell them. Explain it. People understand. Work through it. People will get through this. But be decisive. And by that, what I mean is listen. Listen to what people have to say, but think about your actions in light of that core purpose that we talked about and your values. And then decide and be sure and strong on your decisions. And have a rationale behind them so that you can explain it. It's jumping right all over the place, sorry. I was going to say here, it's not... Remember, in these times, although you're feeling it personally, the best way to succeed is to think about others. That will limit your anxiety. Help others. It's not all about you and your business. It's about your customers. It's about safety. It's about other people. Think about them. And be proactive. Get ahead of things. Be creative. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. We're in the creative mornings here. So get ahead of things and put the safety first. Don't wait for the government necessarily to always tell you something. Be thinking ahead. What could happen? Contingency plans as best you can. Now, I hope that didn't sound too preachy. I'm just trying to throw some ideas out here to give you some sort of principles. I just wanted to show you a couple of examples of things that I've literally come across in the last few days that you might find helpful. So this is River Island, of all places. This is how they're communicating to their customers. And obviously, they're using language that their customers would understand. They're reassuring their customers that they understand you're probably exhausted by all the information, but this is our take on it. Things like that are very helpful. This was Clark's. We talk about purpose and we talk about core brand values. We talk, in essence, the heritage of your business, the heritage of your brand. Draw on that in these times. This is Clark's. They were saying they were founded in 1825, and they talk about their legacy and what that means, and that they've obviously gone through really tough times, various wars, etc. And now they're using their experience to help their customers. These are stories. These are things that will help inspire your people through and your customers through. Tide is setting up a community group. Tide's a bank, and that came through. We've got the Creative Industries Federation, which I understand are offering 6 free months, although I tried to do it and their form wasn't working. Hopefully they'll get it back up by the time this goes out. So check them out, because they're going to be issuing information for the creative industries specifically, and it's free to join for 6 months.
I think MAINFRAME, our partners, sent that out last
That's
night.
true, Hannah York, actually.
Emails and stuff.
Yes.
So if you signed up, you've probably got it.
Yep. Yep. Hopefully everybody heard that. MAINFRAME, our partner, sent that out. Hannah York. So if you need any other information like that, check out Hannah York, check out MAINFRAME, or obviously check that offer out. But there's loads of things going on. This is a Derby company. I'm in Derby, so I thought I'd give a shout out to Recart. Recart are kind of offering, they're offering like a very ad hoc kind of on the fly service. They're into recruitment. I can't pitch them as well as they could pitch themselves. But thinking about, in these difficult times, how could we actually help people? They've basically put a post out and said, if you're out of a job, mention it here. And if you need people to come and work for you, put it onto this post. Very simple, very interesting. No one's making any money. This is them being proactive. This is what I was saying before, getting ahead of the curve, trying to help people. That's the key. What a Recart will be remembered well, I'm sure, by all the people they help get jobs like that. And even things like even if you're a big organization and tuning in, like, you know, the National Trust, for example, they've just said we can all go and visit some of their locations for free. And obviously, with social distancing, enjoy some lovely places outside. So these are the things that we need to think about. And one other example, which is another Derby example, the guys over at Frog Spark, Tim, actually, I saw this on your feed. They just built a really lovely kind of mini little app for the price of a coffee where you can donate like £2-3 and help a struggling business. So these are the things, you know, that the industry here in Derby is starting to do. And I want to sort of propose that these are great opportunities to help each other, to really raise our brand profiles. And even if the worst case scenario, our businesses have to close, if we've done what we can do to get through this, we will be remembered well. And surely that has to be the top of the agenda. So that's one thing. Another thing I was going to say to you was if you haven't, you know, you get your leadership team together, define your purpose, define who you serve, your priorities, but most importantly, if you haven't already, define your values. And then if you have a bigger business, you know, make sure your people are aware of those. Why is that? Well, because when an issue arises outside of the normality of the traditional rules of engagement, if you don't have broad sort of guardrails set up, it's very difficult for people to make any decisions. And so they may start making the wrong decisions. But if you've given them a rationale, if you've said to them, look, one of our key values is care, you know, or putting the customer first, or whatever you may have, they have then a way of operating, even if you yourself are ill or not available. And so that gives them permission then to use their initiative. So that's going to be crucial. That's going to be helpful. And as a leader, as a leader in the creative industries, I think, you know, these are hopefully tools that would help. The other thing I was going to say was partner up. I mentioned competition maybe is something we need to scrap. You know, have a look around. I know we're all sort of in a very competitive environment in the creative industries, but think about other businesses of similar size to you. Reach out to them. See what they're struggling with. That someone might find a solution to a problem that you could also benefit from, and vice versa. So partner up and swarm. I call it swarming. You know, open up a Zoom call and get everybody on it. You know, manage that well. Get people together. You can solve problems quick. And I'm talking to creatives, right? Get creative. So I sometimes say this to my leadership teams. I think I stole it from Tony Robbins or some genius like that. So often we make excuses in normal life about the resources that we have available. So we say, why did we fail? And we'll say, oh, we didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough people. The location we were in wasn't great, whatever it might be. And we blame resources. And that's very easy to do, you know. And at this time, it's very hard. We have very limited resources. But the deciding factor in whether somebody is successful or not is not often resources. It's often resourcefulness. And so my message to you in this sort of part of the talk is get creative. You know, we're creative people. We can problem solve. We can think outside of the box. You know, just because we are in this zone and we think we're a graphic designer or a fashion designer or something, where could we transfer skills so that we can actually think outside of the box to fulfill things and actually add value? So on the screen right now, I think this was from a news outlet in America, and they produced like this little infographic for kids. It was very creative to help kids understand what's going on with the coronavirus. So I think that's just one example of where creativity could be brought to bear. The other thing I was going to say is, you know, we're in Derby, right? And it's, let's be honest, it's a small sort of part of the Midlands in regards to the world. But there's a big bad world out there. There's millions and millions of people. And the good news is, if the news is correct, is that in some parts of the world, they're getting on top of this virus. So Tim mentioned China. You know, hopefully Italy soon will be getting through the worst of it. Now, as those parts of the world become a little bit more steady, there might be things that we can add, some value we can add over there. We might be able to survive, for example, by offering ourselves creativity or whatever we do to parts of the world that is now coming out of lockdown. So think about that. I just throw that out there. But now's the time to connect with those parts of the world, and now's the time to build up those relationships. Most importantly, keep calm and carry on digitally was something I sent out the other day, right? we're all isolated at home. Mental health is going to suffer. You know, it's so important that people feel positive and are connected. So I'm part of a few teams across the world, and you know, we link up and stuff, and various things. Like, there's lots of funny memes going on around here, not that we're making fun of the situation, but being British, we like to, you know, bring that blitz spirit. Like, we will get through it. And so, you know, sharing some of those things around is quite fun. You know, I've got like WhatsApp groups. Get all your team on a WhatsApp group. Get some peers. You know, if you've got a few business leaders, get them on a WhatsApp group. Just communicate. Keep things positive, because we're going to maybe be cooped up for a little while. There's somebody having a quarantini, which I thought was quite innovative. And I definitely might be having one of those after this talk. So keep on digitally. I was running the class the other day. You can have some great fun with it. You know, there was me on top right there. That was me on the moon, right? So, you know, have a bit of fun and connect. Make sure you're connected. So the question is who actually are you? In these times, as I say, these are the times where we can define that and we can live into that. These are the opportunities to do that. And I hope some of the thinking that we've presented, which I know has been a bit ad hoc and not as slick as usually I like to be, but it's the best I really hopefully can offer you to serve you at this tough time. Keep safe, wash your hands, and you know, I'm praying for all of you. Thank you, and God bless.
So our lovely community have tweeted in some questions for you. We're going to kick off with Selena Creedon, who's got a question for Matt. I'm going to read it off my phone, so bear with me. When you see a brand which is rich in heritage, in this instance, they've sent a picture of Fortnum & Mason's logo, right? Do you feel it's okay for them to be funky in their brand communications as opposed to sticking to the tone consumers might expect from them? And moreover, do you think it makes consumers who are currently consuming the product make a purchase?
Interesting.
So I would say that that'd be changing the tone to be more funky. How would you?
So we're talking about change, quite a dramatic change from the sounds of things about how a brand has previously positioned itself to then switching to a different way tonally of talking to their customers, if I've understood the question right, and what that's about. So it's a very interesting question. The way that I would look at it is, look, you have to have a reason for changing your tone, right? And obviously, behind the scenes, therefore, there's a strategic decision that has to be made. So the first thing to realize is this is a brand strategy question, right? Rather than a first and foremost. And then the strategic answer to that question reveals itself, you know, in terms of the veneer, the look and feel, that what's above the Brandberg, if you like, you know, that we can see. So the strategy decision should then affect the tonal presentation of that decision. So why would you make a decision like that to shift is the big question. And I think the way that I would approach it is always customer first. So in the talk, I was talking about the brand is the meaning that people attach to you. So as soon as you realize that, you're trying to shift your attention to another audience, your tone is not going to be the only reason that an audience is going to suddenly find you attractive. What you have to think about is the experience that sits behind that has to marry it. So if you're a traditional company, for example, Fortune & Mason, and you have very traditional stores and you've got all this rich heritage, but for some reason you want to attract younger people, you have to then think across the board. You have to think about your in-store experience, your online experience, everything. And just because you sort of tweak the way that you speak is not going to have the desired effect that you want. I would suggest, final bit of the answer, that if you want to shift audiences and you have a rich heritage, it's actually much easier to set up something new than it is to try and steer a massive ship or, you know, chain a massive monster. If you're going to change something, it shouldn't be a sudden change like someone could recognize, oh, hold on, they were talking to me like this before, now they're talking to me like this. You need to phase that in over time. It takes a long time. If you want to create something new and funky for a new audience, create a new brand, define who you're actually going to serve is a different type of person, and the way you serve them is going to be slightly different. So that's my sort of suggestion. I don't know if that kind of helps.
I hope that helps.
Otherwise, you'll damage yourself. That's I guess where I'm coming from.
So we've got another one from James, who says, in the Corona times, he's noticed a movement towards joint ventures or JVs. right? And I know in the talk you just mentioned competition, maybe it's not a time for that. So when you're bringing two brands together in a joint venture, is there any kind of tips or hints or anything else that is important? Should one brand lead or not over the other, for example?
That's a fascinating question. I would say, this is just my gut response, I probably need to think about that, James, actually. It's a great question, but I think I would say, look, again, it's about the way that consumers sort of buy things, if we go to the normal world we're used to looking at, is they almost have like a little box in their head for a goal, challenge, or a problem that they've got, and they put a brand in there that they think would solve that. So what I would say is, with your joint venture, right, I would actually almost start off with a blank sheet of paper and say, okay, we've got these two existing brands, we can leverage that if we want, but actually this new thing, what is this new thing? What's its purpose? Who is it serving? And then you kind of figure out, well, actually, maybe we need a completely new brand identity, which says, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, very focused. Oh, and by the way, it's powered by these other two businesses that are powering this. That way, then, that is one approach. The other approach is, as James has said, is just to kind of have one lead it and the other one tag on. Less powerful. And also the other one is just to try and keep them both the same, but then it's really mixed messages in terms of the presentation. So my gut feel on that one would be, create something new, call it something new, and then just leverage it to both the other brands, to their audiences, but define your new audience for that new product. So,
okay, yeah, interesting. Good question, James, good question.
Great question.
And final question is from Hannah York. Again, we shouted her out, little Hannah from MAINFRAME.
Hello, Hannah.
Who asks, as an event-based project, how do we keep our brand alive when we can't host in-life events? So, yeah, very apt.
I don't have all the answers to these questions. I think the thing is to say, okay, we said in the talk, resources are a problem, but resourcefulness should never really be a problem, particularly for creative people. So we're creative. So already today, we have begun to solve one of the problems within the parameters of what we can. So, I would say digital is the way to go for events. Creating valuable content. People are going to be stuck at home, for ages. This is actually an opportunity for events companies, I would say, to create content, because they have people who are just going to be bored out of their minds. So how could you make that exciting? My suggestion is to explore, and we've talked about this, to explore something like Zoom, right? Where you can actually, so I run online workshops all the time. So technically I'm kind of section of my business is events, but for leadership teams. So what I've been doing is taking a platform like Zoom, others are available, and one of the features that's really cool is you've got things like digital whiteboards, so you can get people to collaborate together, which you wouldn't normally perhaps do as easily in face-to-face. And the other thing is breakout rooms digitally is awesome. So with Zoom, for example, I just say that because I've been using it recently. If I've got 20 people, I can basically take 5 of them and press a button, and they're all in one room talking to each other, and then I can bring them all back together. So you can actually create the networking experience and the community feel that you might get from socializing and networking ordinary. So I would suggest, Hannah, you take a look at that. We might be able to run a Creative Mornings maybe like that, where you might find that you can have a little bit of networking time with 4 other isolated people and then come back together to listen to the talks. Who knows? But that's just a suggestion. Let's be resourceful in these times of lack of resources.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So that was Matt Davies, everybody. I know it's a bit of an odd version of Creative Mornings when we're not all in that lovely cafe at Quad. But we've got a few more slides to shout out. And one of them brings Matt back to the camera, which is about BRANDUP. Do you want to swap over?
All right.
Take the centre.
Hello again, everybody. I thought I was just out the door. It was just a quick one. So BRANDUP conference. Me and Steve are still hoping to proceed. We are monitoring, obviously, the situation. Everyone's saying this. It may have to happen later in the year. But we want to make sure that everybody's safe and everything's fine. So we're looking at that. Keep an eye out for our digital content, though, because we still want to add value all the way through. So yeah, BRANDUP. It's the only brand strategy conference dedicated-wise in the Midlands, and we're super excited to be having it in Derby. So I'm hoping as many as can can join it and to get involved. It's for charity. It's not for us. We've got some awesome speakers lined up. Check out the website, brandupconference.co.uk, and what we will do is be sending out information. So sign up. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. Cheers, Matt. And if you're signed up to our newsletter, our email list, you'll get all the links to BRANDUP and everything in there as well. And finally, thank our local partners. So we're in Future Proof now, and these guys really are kind of top of their tree in terms of videography. And I say it every week, we are super grateful that they do this because it is a voluntary role. We're here to create a creative community in Derby, to design it, to try and build it for you. So a massive thanks to Future Proof, and you'll get loads of digital kudos. I imagine everybody's clapping as you're watching this. And a shout out to Essential Print, who is another local partner. She does all our lovely roller banners. Yvonne, you'll probably know her if you come to the events. Big shout out to you, Yvonne. Hope you're staying safe, and you and your team. And especially MAINFRAME and Quad. So as we film this, Quad is shut currently. And if you don't know about Quad, Quad is a charity, so a not-for-profit. So being closed and not running the cinema and the events and the cafe and stuff is critical to their survival. And Quad is, you can buy a membership for 35 quid a year for Quad, 35 quid for the year. And they need support more than ever now, because they're integral part of not only the Creative Mornings Derby community, but the creative community in the city. So please show some love. And Hannah and Charlene from MAINFRAME, who are usually by my side. Woo! And they're not here. It wasn't the same. I mean, the two lads are beautiful, but not as good as you guys. So big love to you guys. And I wanted to end with our kind of manifesto. So Creative Mornings as a manifesto, we'll put a slide up and we'll send it out because it's important. And it means that everybody, like Matt said, I think in his talk, right, everybody's creative and everybody's welcome into this community, especially now, especially as it's digital and we're all spread around and we're locked in our houses, right? Come into the community. It doesn't matter if you've been to an event. It doesn't matter if you're not a creative, because you definitely are, by the way. So just come in. Just come in, join us. We're a friendly bunch, and we'll welcome you with open digital arms. No touching. No touching. And that brings us to the end. Creative Mornings, this has been an interesting one. Massive shout out to Robert, Future Proof, and Matt, who've come and sat with me in this room in Derby in the Future Proof office. Hopefully you found it useful, and we'll be back next month with another online event, because the next couple are not in-person events. Hopefully we'll be back for May, but we'll keep you posted. Thanks very much.